Hey there, everybody. Well, my name's Josh, or Carpo, if you will, and this is one of those videos I don't really want to make, but I feel like I have to make. It's like almost like a public service announcement. Sometimes when I make a video, I feel like it's something that I just have to talk about, but I just reluctantly put it off, and in this case, it's about fentanyl. In fact, even talking about these subjects obviously means that it's not advertiser friendly. We've heard this a million times from YouTubers. But the point I'm making here is that there's a reason why more people don't talk about some of these serious issues is because they're afraid of being demonetized. Which, as a guy who doesn't really use ad revenue, I figure since I'm supported by my patrons, it makes more sense. And I'm just making that point because a lot of the videos that I used to have out about these subjects are people have asked me where they went. You know, where are your videos about substance use or about kratom or psychedelics? All of those videos are still available, but they're unlisted, and they're all available on playlists on my Patreon site. Now, I didn't just do this just to get more patrons. I actually did it to protect my channel against outside bullshit. The types of, people running across videos randomly. I don't want kids coming across some of these videos and not understanding what harm reduction really is. People know I may consume substances in my life, but I am a respectful and responsible user of most of these substances. I don't let myself get out of control, I don't overconsume, and I'm very cautious about what I do take. And because I was a kid once, I grew up and I, just like many of the kids today, would, hey, I'll take some Vicodin. Or, hey, you've got some morphine pills. Or, fortunately, I didn't encounter OxyContin when I was a kid. This is because OxyContin wasn't around when I was a kid. It wasn't really popular until the mid to late 90s, and that's when it hit its heyday. At that point, I was already in my 20s, and I saw what these pills, these little tiny OC pills, did to people. Now, I took my share of various pills and substances when I was young. Maybe, fortunately, I never stuck a needle in my arm. I never took it to that level. I've always been very, wise. It was one of my rules not to ever do that. However, taking anything in a pill was risky enough even back then, which brings me to the point here. It's worse today. And this is because when I was a kid, if you went out and you bought some Vicodin off of somebody or some Percocets, these likely came from somebody's prescription because back then it was just too easy to go get opiates. And there were plenty of pill mills out there willing to supply. What's happened today is that these pills are basically impossible to come by. So what people do is they take fentanyl, they import it in large quantities, then they mix it up with basically an agent or a neutral medium, chalk, whatever the hell they're using in their capsules. They mix a tiny amount. Now I posted this the other day. The amount of fentanyl that can kill an adult is 2 milligrams. It's a very tiny amount. It is 2 grains of salt, basically. And because of this, they mix it in these large batches, then they press it into these pills, and then they put a little V on it, or a little M, or whatever you want it to look like. And now the kids are buying these things, and in the Beaverton School District, I believe Sunset High School, which is in the Portland area, in the area where I grew up, there have been several overdoses with high school kids over the last couple of years. And there have been thousands, I think 12,000 fentanyl pills, and that's just a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. I mean, off of the streets that were, fentanyl-laced pills claiming to be something else. This is a major problem because with other opiates, they tend to be a slightly longer acting, but they don't wear off as quick. But they also don't have the same amount of respiratory depression. I mean, with fentanyl, there's a certain level people hit where they're just gone. And, it's sad that today people have to carry around a little Narcan spray with them just in case they run across somebody overdosing. And I know a lot of people have mixed feelings. Some people want to help those who have this problem, who have, addictions and the opiate crisis. Others want to blame the pharmaceutical industry and, the Purdue family, OxyContin, which is a totally legitimate gripe. But whether you're blaming the addicts or blaming the pill companies, it doesn't change the fact that this is actually happening. and it is a problem. And the root of many of these addictions comes from, people's childhood, the issues they've had in life, things that we can actually work on, by using, having discussions with people and putting them in counseling where they can actually get the help they need. Now, it's not an easy task. It's no easy task at all. I don't have any answers here. I'm still in the process of writing this book about pharma, and I keep adding these parts because there's always something new to add. But I'd like to put a final note up. I was looking into testing strips for fentanyl products, and I found out that not only, of course, do they have test strips, but recently, last month, the CDC approved funding for individual states where they can get funding to get these strips to get them to the people that need them. Now, this brings me to the mixed feelings. Some people will say, well, if you get test kits to these people who are doing drugs, they'll just continue to do drugs. To be honest, that's the same mentality as saying, well, if we have Narcan, then they're just going to continue to overdose. This may be true, but nobody wants to overdose. Nobody wants to die. Well, some people do. But my point being that most people would rather know what's in what they're consuming. And to save a few lives, some people say, hey, once people are down that rabbit hole, they never recover. It's not true. There are plenty of addicts who recover. And to dismiss somebody because they're an addict in society, it's a travesty. The problem's just going to continue to get worse. So, on the test strips note, I contacted my local representative here that I found an email, and surprised he got back to me in a couple hours, and he directed me to a more local group that works with homeless, because as we're picking up garbage, I thought, well, if we do come across homeless groups, if my wife's out there with the group, they can, get these to people. I mean, it's an awkward thing. Hey, do you want test strips for drugs that might kill you? But there are people out there who need them. Having a needle exchange, that's also a very mixed reception for people. They think, well, if you have a needle exchange, then more people are going to use heroin. It's a ludicrous idea. It's not true. They try to use that same reasoning with cannabis by saying, if you legalize cannabis, it's just going to cause all these problems, but it hasn't. The people who use, regardless of whether it's illegal or legal. Throwing them in jail and creating fines for them doesn't solve the problem. People want help. Some do. I think we all do, one way or another. But anyhow, that's all I got for today. Just wanted to let you know where I'm at with that, and let you know that if you live in a state where you live in an area where you talk with people who have these problems, where there's a lot of addiction, and this is something you could contact your local city officials and get some for yourself to distribute to the people. Because believe me, they're not going to walk in and ask for them. And it might save a life. And like I said, all the information about these things is generally posted on my Patreon. So if you're looking for those older videos, that's where they're at. And thanks for listening. I'll talk to you all later. Take care.